The Hulu original series, Furious, is coming to Hulu and Hulu on Disney Plus July 27th.
There are 3 victims we know of. The suspect is female, white, late 20s.
Female serial killers
Kill for power, control. I believe there's a deeper motivation here.
You have no idea who you're dealing with, and you are going to end up dead.
I've been waiting for you.
Watch the Hulu original series, Furious, on July 27th. Streaming on Hulu and Hulu on Disney Plus for bundle subscribers. Terms apply.
Hi, Ryan Reynolds here for Mint Mobile. Are you looking for a beach read this summer? May I suggest your big wireless bill? It's got suspense, mystery, a slightly flat, emotional arc, and a shocking twist where you realize you've been overpaying the entire time. Fortunately, though, Mint's story is better. Every plan, $15 a month. Even unlimited. That's it. Happy ending. 0 tears.
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan required. $15 per month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra. Initial plan term only. Greater than 50 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. See terms.
Hello, my name is Chrissy Champagne, and you are listening to Residue, a true crime podcast dedicated to keeping you paranoid. On Residue, we talk about the truth behind your favorite films, and today we're talking about the movie Dead Man's Wire and also the documentary Dead Man's Line. If you've seen Dead Man's Wire, you know that Coleman Domingo plays this really cool, suave radio DJ back in the 70s. And I was thinking about how cool he is and how every time I get up here behind the mic up here in my attic, I feel like Christian Slater from Pump Up the Volume. I always feel like I should have some Concrete Blonde playing in the background, or better yet, some Leonard Cohen playing like, everybody knows that the dice are loaded. So every single time I say stay paranoid, I really am saying talk hard. Look at that. I threw in a 90s movie reference and a song, singing a song, going back to the good old days for you guys. Speaking of the good old days, so we're going to get rid of the theme song. I'm just going to give you guys a heads up right now. It could be next week. It could be the week after, but you're going to turn on Residue one of these Tuesdays and you're going to hear a new song in the beginning because we're going to get an original. It's a song that's made specifically for Residue. And I'm really excited about it, but I just wanted to, warn you guys ahead of time so you're not like, what the hell am I listening to? Also, a couple things before we begin. Do not forget to follow me on Instagram at Residue Podcast, Facebook, Residue a True Crime Podcast, and TikTok, Residue a True Crime Podcast. Also, do not forget to hit that follow button so you know when to meet us back here every single Tuesday. And also, I have to always thank you for showing me so much love in the comment section, on the reviews. You guys are the best. Thank you so much. And you know that if you leave a positive review for your favorite podcast, it really helps the podcast out. So that is amazing that you take time out of your day to do that. Okay, this is not usually how I roll. The intros are never usually this long. So I want to just get this episode started. And before I do, I have to warn you, listener discretion is always advised. And I do also have to warn those people out there that do not like swearing, because there are a lot of quotes in this one. And this guy, Tony likes to swear a lot more than even I do. So just be prepared. Ready? Here we go. Dead Man's Wire is a 2025 crime drama directed by Gus Van Sant and written by Austin Kolodny, and it is based on the remarkable true story of the 1977 hostage crisis in Indianapolis involving Tony Kiritsis. He was a man that believed that he was cheated by a real estate developing company called Meridian Mortgage Company. And this screenplay was developed with input from historical consultants Alan Berry and Mark Enochs, who previously produced the 2018 documentary Dead Man's Line. And just to note, Dead Man's Line was my main source for this week's episode. So the cast of Dead Man's Wire is Bill Skarsgård as Tony Kiritsis. If there's one thing you need to know about me, it's that Bill Skarsgård is one of my favorite actors. I will watch any movie that he is in. If I find out he's in a movie, it is 100% going to be a movie that I watch. It also stars Dacre Montgomery as Richard Hall, Coleman Domingo as Fred Temple, and Fred Temple is inspired by an Indianapolis radio personality named Fred Heckman. So when you watch Dead Man's Wire, Coleman Domingo's character was not exactly as portrayed. Fred Heckman was a different type of DJ. But Mihala as Linda Page, a television reporter, which also she did not exist either. So that is a made-up character for the film. Linda Page is a news reporter who is just trying to get her big break on the news scene, and she just keeps getting shot down, but she's the first one on the scene. And then Al Pacino as M.L. Hull, who is Richard Hull's father, and then Cary Elwes as a police detective, because I'm watching this movie and he is so done up with makeup that I was about 20 minutes into watching him when I'm like, I need to know who this is because I know who it is. I just can't pinpoint with all that makeup and the beard and the accent he's using. But then his one little, you know how sometimes in a movie, Cary Elwes, his accent will come through a little bit. And I'm like, oh my God, Saw. I didn't say The Princess Bride. I said Saw. So the filmmaker stayed remarkably close to the true story. The hostage crisis, Tony's dispute with Meridian Mortgage, the shotgun rigged with the dead man's wire, his media appearances, and the 3-day standoff all occurred substantially as depicted in the movie. But however, the film combines and fictionalizes some characters, as I said, to streamline the story. The most notable is Linda Page, which I gotta say, I was really interested in the story behind Linda Page. Like, that was the first thing I wanted to find out about. Because in the movie, she's working her ass off to get noticed. And they were just not letting her through. They were putting all the men on TV instead of her. And I really wanted to find out more about that. And then I find out it's not real. According to a cinemaholic.com article, although Dead Man's Wire is based on a true story, the film incorporates several fictional elements to help tell the story. And among these are the character of reporter Linda Page and the television station Indianapolis News Now 12. While they both play important roles in the film's narrative, neither is based on a real person or news organization connected to the actual events. The real hostage crisis received extensive media coverage from local Indianapolis newspapers and television stations, as well as national news outlets. However, there are no historical records indicating that a reporter named Linda Page was involved in covering the incident. Likewise, there is no evidence that a television station known as Indianapolis News Now 12 ever existed or played a role in the media landscape during the 1970s. So instead, these fictional creations were added by filmmakers to enhance the storytelling while trying to remain grounded in the broader reality of the historic event. And as I said, the director of Dead Man's Wire was Gus Van Sant, and he did speak to Variety.com, saying, I think a lot of the films I've made, even unintentionally, have been based on real things. That's a genre, I guess. I've always been drawn to what makes people do what they do. And he stated that in Dead Man's Wire, he reads the script and there were links embedded into the script where he could click on them and hear the real 911 calls. And he said Tony talked so fast, like Scorsese on a cocaine bender, cracking jokes and losing his temper. And I thought, oh my God, this is an amazing character. This Variety.com article states, with Dead Man's Wire, Van Sant delivers his most arresting and charged work since Milk. The film hums with a restless energy that defined his early 1970s-like masterpieces while showcasing a sharpened maturity in tone and control. And Bill Skarsgård gives a career-best performance, grounding Tony Kiritsis' volatility with flashes of humor and heartbreak. Gus Van Sant goes on to say that a lot of his films, even the fictional ones, are based on something from the real world, a news article, a story, and he references his films Drugstore Cowboy, Elephant, Last Days. I would also like to add To Die For. He says that this is not true crime like television, but it's about what makes someone act a certain way, the question inside of the crime. February 8th, 1977, a 911 call comes in and the man on the line is raging. Sir, this is a dire emergency. This is a serious thing. I've just taken a prisoner. This is not a crank call. I've got a 12-gauge sawed-off automatic shotgun. I've got a dead man's line on the trigger, 3 shells in the fucking gun. There is one in the chamber and a man with a gun on his neck, wrapped around it with a cable that's holding the fucking safety in his hand. And if anybody yanks on me, yanks the gun, or makes a false fucking move, we will all die right here. I'm mad at these motherfuckers trying to take everything I've got, but if you doubt that I'll kill him, you're reading me wrong. I'm a mad, mean motherfucker, and my name is Tony Kiritsis. This was all happening on the 109th East Market Street, 4th floor. Bill Fisher, a cameraman with WISH TV, was on the scene. He says that you can see Tony Kiritsis come out of the building. He walks to the corner with a man in front of him, a shotgun attached to that man's neck. And Tony's looking all around for his car. Now, there is extremely good footage of this incident in the documentary Dead Man's Line. Police are everywhere. The media is everywhere. And Tony has Richard Hall attached to this gun. Now, Richard Hall worked at Meridian Mortgage Company. Nobody knows why this is going on. Nobody knows what is happening. All they know is that this man, Tony, is asking for a car, and he is demanding that they give him a car. Cops are everywhere. They're following him. He's just walking, and he tells them, listen, we're going to keep walking until you get me a car. So Tony is pissed because the cops are not cooperating. They're not offering up a car. And they call in a hostage negotiator named John Michael Grable, who steps in and he tries to talk to Tony as they're all walking. I mean, he's got this gun against Richard Hall's neck and they're just walking down the street together. So John Michael Grable is standing there in this footage with his arms wide open, just saying, hey, Tony, can we just talk? And Tony looks at him yelling, screaming, you are a dumb motherfucker. He's telling this cop, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to get me to kill this guy? Do what I tell you to do. So Tony wants to be in control. And I already apologize for all the swearing that I've done. We've been, 2 minutes into the story, and I think I've sworn more than ever in my life. I don't know how I'm going to get through a lot of Tony's quotes. I'll cut a lot of things out. I'll try my hardest. So he's telling this cop, get me a car. Do it. They're not doing it. The cops are not getting Tony a car. So Tony is getting angry and he's yelling back at this officer. And as he does, he falls to the ground. And when he falls, Richard falls with him. And everyone is surprised that the gun didn't go off. I mean, even Tony in the video looks shocked that the gun didn't go off when he fell to the ground with Tony. But as he falls to the ground, he also starts to pull a pistol out of his jeans, and nobody knew he had a pistol. The police were just as shocked that not only did he have this shotgun attached to Richard, but he had a pistol in his pants. And as he's pulling this pistol out of his pants, he is screaming, I've never seen a dumber bunch of bastards in my life, and I love policemen. He's yelling at them. They're not doing anything. They're just following him. I'm talking like dozens of police officers just following Tony down the street. Tony's acting pretty erratic, and Richard Hall never looks upset. He's so calm. The guy has just channeled this calmness during this entire event. I'm watching this documentary. I'm watching Tony yell at these officers, and I'm like, man, that man has a mouth on him, and that's funny for me to say. So while they're all walking, while dozens of police officers are following Tony, Richard in front of him, they see that a police officer has left his car running in the middle of the street with his door open, like he jumped out of the car, and Tony walks right up to him. He's like, I'm taking this car. And he gets in the car with Richard and he takes a police car and he drives all the way back to his apartment at Crestwood Apartments. Now, once they get to the apartment building, Tony takes Richard Hall all the way up to the 3rd floor apartment where Tony lived. Police and media are camped outside. And now at first, police follow Tony up to his apartment, and Tony tells them, listen, get the hell away from my apartment because I have this whole entire building wired and this whole place will go up. I will blow this entire building up with everyone inside of it if you don't leave me alone. So the residents are evacuated. There are over 500 people living in this apartment complex that are evacuated. And in the video, you can see them all running. Nobody knows what is going on. The news channels, they start live streaming. A SWAT team arrives. They have snipers in apartments directly across from Tony's. So you're all probably wondering the same thing everyone else on the scene was. Who the hell is this Tony Kiritsis guy? Well, Tony was born on August 13th, 1932 in Indianapolis, Indiana. He was the fourth of 5 children born to Greek immigrant parents, George and Magdalena Kiritsis, and he was raised in a close-knit Greek Orthodox Christian household where Greek was his first language. And it was not until he began elementary school that he learned to speak English. And this was an experience that reflected the balance between his family's cultural heritage and then life in the United States for this young boy. After graduating from Ben Davis High School in 1950, Tony enlisted in the United States Army, and during his service, he was stationed at the United States Military Academy at West Point, where he served as a small arms instructor. He completed his military service with the rank of corporal, and the discipline, responsibility, and the work ethic he developed during those years remained defining qualities throughout Tony's life. Following his time in the Army, Tony worked in several different occupations, including a car salesman, and he eventually joined his family's business and became the manager of the family-owned trailer park, where he dedicated many years of hard work. So beyond his career, Tony found joy in simple pleasures. He was an avid NASCAR fan. He enjoyed tending a small garden where he grew fruits and vegetables, and he loved searching for hidden treasures at garage sales. Tony Kiritsis never married, and he lived a largely independent life. And according to his brother, James, Tony avoided becoming attached to anything, explaining that he didn't even want to own a pet because he didn't want that kind of emotional commitment. Now, his brother James also recalled that after their mother died of cancer at the age of 41, he noticed a significant change in Tony's personality, and this loss had a lasting impact on him and marked a turning point in his life. Friends said that if Tony says he was going to do something, then he would definitely do it. He was a good friend, but Tony was a bad enemy. In 1968, Tony was arrested and charged with assault with intent to murder. And although this case was later dismissed, that same year, following an altercation with his brother Tom, he fired 2 gunshots. The charges stemming from that incident were also dismissed. And according to a contemporary news report, a sheriff's detective described Tony as a very hot-tempered individual who, when angry, does just about anything that he wants. Also in 1968, Tony left the family business and began working as a salesman at several automobile dealerships. Hoping to pursue a real estate venture, he obtained a $110,000 loan from Meridian Mortgage and purchased a 17-acre property at the northwest corner of Rockville Road and Lyndhurst Drive in Indianapolis. And now he intended to develop this site into a shopping center. But he was unable to attract investors or secure the financing needed to move this project forward. So as a result, he fell behind on his loan payments. Now, Tony came to believe that his mortgage broker, Richard Hall, was deliberately undermining his efforts because Richard and his father allegedly wanted to acquire the property for themselves and resell it for a substantial profit after its value increased. And now this is why Tony thought that they were trying to screw him over and he wanted revenge. Now, Tony is up in his 3rd floor apartment at the Crestwood apartment building complex with Richard Hall attached to a dead man's wire. And police could see into Tony's apartment, and they see strings lined up all across the room with candles attached. Come to find out, these strings had cans of gasoline attached, and if a string broke, then the candles would drop into the gasoline cans and blow the whole place up. So the snipers that were set up, they couldn't get a good shot, because they didn't know where these strings were, what they were going to do, who they were going to harm. Police learned that Tony had so much respect for his brother Jimmy. So they contact Jimmy, and Jimmy's like, no doubt about it. I'm going to get in the car. I'm going to arrive at the apartment. The police are like, hell no. We're going to get you helicoptered up here right away, right now. Now, George Martz He was the Marion County deputy prosecutor. He goes on live TV. He's talking to the public and he's like, I have never done this before. But Tony, he made a lot of demands. He told negotiators, you get these things for me and I will let Richard go. One of these demands was that he wanted an apology. He wanted an apology from Meridian Mortgage. He also wanted them to pay him $5 million. He wanted all of his money back. So they send in a guy named Clifford Chapman to read this apology on live TV. Now, this apology was issued by M. Hall, who is Richard's father. This was a really short apology. I mean, if it was me, I would be pissed if this was the apology that I was given. The apology just said, this is a public apology to Anthony Kiritsis from Meridian Mortgage. That was basically it. They did that on live TV and they're like, okay, are you good? Is this good? So his other request, his other demands were he didn't want to be arrested. He didn't want to be put into any kind of psychiatric treatment. And as I said, he wanted to receive the appropriate damages from Meridian Mortgage. Another request was that he wanted to speak to Fred Heckman. Basically, think of the most famous DJ in your hometown and how you listen to them all the time on the radio. He's requesting to speak to his most favorite DJ in 1977. I'm wondering if nowadays people would request to speak to their favorite podcaster. Fred Heckman was a legendary news director and broadcaster at WIBC AM in Indianapolis, where he spent 32 years. And though not primarily a music DJ, he was a trusted voice in the city, known best for his My Town Indie radio essays and for successfully negotiating a 63-hour hostage crisis in 1977. So Fred Heckman famously anchored this 1977 Tony Kiritsis hostage standoff. He was just thrown into this situation and he handled it all with such grace. So Tony wants to talk to Fred, and Fred even tells his audience before Tony gets on the line, like, listen, if you don't like strong language, then do not listen to this part of the program. Tony says, I've been an angry man for 44 years. Nobody has had the adversity that I have. I am the strongest man mentally that I know. And, you know, these guys are lucky that they're dealing with me because these people betrayed me. They set me up. They schemed to ruin my life. I went down there for vengeance, and by God, I will have vengeance. And I'm going to walk out of here a free man. And now, you're right. I planned it. I planned it the first day I signed that mortgage in 1972, December 19th. I told this man and his father in their office over a period of 4 years repeatedly, almost explicitly, that I would kill any man that set me up with this kind of greed. I'm not a rich man. I'm a poor man. I never wanted to be rich. It didn't bother me. I could go gliding along here being poor, working like a dog and breaking even and being happy as a dog in dog heaven. But nobody, sir, nobody is going to set me up and take everything that I own. Fuck these people. They played with God and they lost. And then that phone call ends and Fred is like, why am I involved in this? And then Fred's producer is like, Fred, what are we going to do about all these fucks? That is really something that his producer said to him because this was going to go, I mean, they're on the radio in 1977. You can't say the F word. And they say it in the film too. Dead Man's Wire, Gus Van Sant noted that in the film. The standoff is still going on. Like I said, this whole thing lasted 63 hours. The media is just camped outside of the apartment building. Now, Jimmy, Tony's brother, he gets on live TV and he starts telling the public, listen, my brother's not a thief. He never asked for a ransom. He's not a desperado. Maybe we can resolve this by the morning. And they're all like, yeah, maybe. I don't know. He does have a gun strapped to a guy's neck. So also one of Tony's demands was that he doesn't want to be prosecuted. He wants to get out of this scot-free. So a man named John Ruckelshaus, he is on the scene now as Tony's attorney because the police start thinking, you know what? If Tony wants to talk about not getting arrested, there won't be any kind of prosecution, no trial. Why don't we get him a lawyer to come in and start talking to him? So they call this guy John Ruckelshaus. Ruckelshaus. Goodness, there are a lot of names in this story that are very difficult for me to pronounce. So John arrives on the scene. He's the new attorney, and he starts talking to Tony and trying to see what they can do for him in order for him to let Richard go. Tony just does not seem to be budging on any angle here, and the police start to realize that Tony is listening to Fred Heckman's radio station, like nonstop. That's where he's getting his info from. And Fred Heckman is reporting things that are happening. He's telling his audience that the Army bomb squad is trying to figure out a way to get into Tony's house. And Tony's hearing this, and he's like, hey, guys, what the hell? You're giving all your secrets away, and Fred Heckman is telling them on the radio right now, and I hear everything. He says on his radio station that these officers were told that they could get into the building without setting explosives off, that the Army bomb squad knew exactly how to get in. So the police call Fred and they ask him, can you please call Tony and just start talking to him because we think he's really upset because he's been hearing all of this stuff you've been saying on your radio station and he knows what we're up to. So maybe you could talk to him. So Fred Heckman calls Tony. I mean, this poor man, he's a radio DJ. He doesn't know what he's doing. He calls Tony and he's like, hey, how are you doing, my friend? And Tony's like raging. Tony goes off. He's like, these motherfuckers, they just broadcast something on your fucking radio station and now they're trying to lie to you about it, Fred. And I don't like it. I don't like it there's so many swear words. I'm so sorry, you guys. He's like, don't you tell me what I heard, Fred Heckman. And now Fred Heckman just keeps trying to calm Tony down this entire phone call. He's like, come on, let's calm down. Tony is not having it. Tony ain't having it. Tony hangs up. Fred calls him back. The minute Fred calls back, Tony just picks up the phone and he's like, Mr. Heckman, please. I respect you. You've been a hell of a man. But please get those, he says a pretty bad word, COCK suckers out of my hall right now. Get them out of my apartment. I normally in real life would say that word, but I feel like I've overwhelmed you enough with the way Tony talks. He says, I will have my vengeance if nothing else. So Tony hangs up again. And then Fred calls his producers and he's like, hey, listen, guys, I'm pretty agitated. I don't want to be a part of this. But honestly, at this point, the only person that Tony really respects is Fred Heckman. And so producers and the police, the authorities, they're like, listen, Fred, I think we're going to need you to come on down to the Crestwood Apartments and we're going to need you here in person trying to talk to Tony. So every time Fred does talk to Tony, Tony always tells him how much he likes him. He yells at him. He says some bad words, but he always stops in the middle of all of his rage and he's like, I really respect you, Mr. Heckman. So along with Fred Heckman, the FBI also sends in a hostage negotiator psychologist named Patrick Mullaney. He's a special agent FBI. He's a profiler. And now this negotiator had Tony pegged. He starts telling police what to do next. He's like, listen, it's not that hard to figure out. This man needs to be in control. You cannot take his control away. So you give him what he wants. At this point, they're on day 3 of this hostage situation. Fred Heckman is now involved in negotiations. And I mean, I'm telling you, even the FBI requested, Fred, you got to come over here. You got to help in negotiations. This radio DJ is figuring out how to be a hostage negotiator. And they tell him the best way that you could do it is if that you just keep making really upbeat comments to get Tony pepped up again. And Tony calms down when he is with Fred. An FBI profiler says that Tony is a really easy man to chart. You can't let him get too down. You have to keep him a little, like they said, pepped up. If he gets too down, he gets to a dangerous level where he feels like he has nothing to live for, so he would just kill. The main thing that Tony is worried about by day 3 of this hostage situation is that he's being lied to and that he won't get granted immunity. So they have the deputy prosecutor again, George Martz. He gets back on live TV. I mean, this man couldn't hate this more. He is, to me, hilarious in this documentary. Because he is just like, I don't know what I'm doing. I've never been in this kind of situation. So he gets back on live TV and he reads a statement. It is a letter of immunity granted to Tony. He's got his letter of immunity now and it is read on live TV. Tony's demands are being granted left and right. He is getting everything that he has asked for, and he's still not coming out of that apartment. So detectives start thinking, you know what? This man likes to be the center of attention. Why don't we, quote, create a stage? Like not a literal stage, but like create a space with all the media, a whole room that we can ask Tony to come into and let him speak. This is his stage. And you know what? Once Tony saw his stage, he wants to be there. He's like, hell yeah, let me on it. And he comes out and he's still got Richard attached to that gun. And it's all on live TV. They even terminate a live broadcast of John Wayne accepting an award. And yes, that is in the movie and that did really happen. And Tony is yelling at everyone when he walks in the room. He's like, turn the damn cameras on. They're already on, but he's screaming. He's, Tony's in control. Now, he has the dead man's wire still around Richard's neck, and he's yelling. He's yelling at Richard to read this statement. There's a piece of paper. He hands it to Richard. Richard starts to read it. And as I said, Richard is like a stone cold. He is chill. This man looks like, you're not going to hurt me, dude. I'm in a zone right now. So Richard starts to read the note and Tony's freaking out. He's like, you know what? No, you're not doing it right. Give it to me. Give it to me. I'm going to read this on national television and I want this on national television. Like I'm talking all 3 national channels because I've got friends all over this country and I want them all to hear me. I want you to stop anything that's on the TV now. It is the Tony Show now.
Hold it. I want this goddamn thing understood. I'll read it. February 10th, 1977. I want a glass of water. This statement is being made to try and stage the items that Mr. Kiritsis alludes, and I don't like that word. I charge, and they've admitted it. Alludes to as being illegal and unethical acts of the whole group. This cease negotiation approved the Kiritsis site and had a definite interest in building there. Give me a drink now. Give me a drink.
I know the audio is horrible. It's hard to understand what he's saying. I just wanted to add that little clip in so that you can get a vibe for what Tony was like, how he was screaming and raging. And at the same time, he's wiping away tears on this. And he keeps asking for a drink. I wanted to get that in there. I'm sorry if it sounds pretty awful on the recording, but Tony's raging and he goes on for a long time. He talks a really long time. And he even says near the end of his, speech, I've humiliated this man this way, even though he must have surely had it coming, while he's wiping away tears. And he's talking about, obviously, Richard Hall. Now, while Tony is yelling at the cameras, and he's still got Richard in front of him, all the detectives are behind him. Even Fred Heckman is there. The deputy prosecutor is there. Everyone's behind him. And Police Chief Gallagher, he had an idea. Now, he had a gun and a handkerchief. He said when he pulls that handkerchief out of his coat pocket, that is when he's going to kill Tony. Now, this man was ready to do this on live TV. But he said that he pulled that handkerchief out of his pocket at least 3 times. And all the other officers knew when that handkerchief hits the ground, I'm going to shoot Tony. He couldn't do it. He kept putting the handkerchief back into his pocket because he was like, it was too scary. He was too worried. He never pulled the trigger on Tony. He was worried that he would make a mistake. What if the gun did go off, killed Richard? What about the fact that this is all on live TV? So Tony rages for a very long time, and all of a sudden, Tony, Richard, all of the detectives, they just start walking out of this room. The media has no idea what's going on. The media is there. Their cameras are live streaming. They cut a whole show with John Wayne on it, and everyone's like, where are they going? They go into a room where nobody in the media can see them. At this point, cameras are live, the public's watching, the nation's watching, and the media is just now speculating what could possibly be happening in that room. Now, they know that Tony wanted a $5 million promissory note, and once he got that note, he would release Richard. So the media is just standing outside, and all of a sudden, boom, they hear a gunshot. Everyone's just silent. Everyone thinks, oh my God, he just killed Richard. A gun goes off. They have no idea what's going on. There's just silence. And George Martz, the deputy prosecutor, comes walking out. I told you I love this guy. He looks at the cameras. They're all asking him, what happened? What happened to Tony? Where's Tony? And he just goes, I don't know and I don't give a shit. To this live camera, he said, I can't explain what that shot was, but I will tell you that the hostage negotiation, it's over. Richard is free and he is okay. We got Tony to let Richard go. But the media keeps yelling, but we heard one shot. We need to know what that shot was. So come to find out, Tony actually shot the gun as a demonstration to prove to everyone that it was real. So they took the dead man's wire off of Richard Hall, and then he's like, hey, look, I wasn't joking, and shoots the gun. Tony's just joking around with police officers. He thinks he's best friends with Fred Heckman. Tony thinks he's free. He got all of his demands. He didn't realize that immunity cannot be granted to an accused. A document was typed up to grant him immunity, but that document is null and void if the prosecutor's office doesn't agree to these terms. And George Martz, the prosecutor, he was like, yeah, I don't agree to these terms, Tony. Guess what? Handcuffed, put into the back of a cop car, bail set at $150,000. Richard Hall faced the media, and he was greeted by a room full of people that gave him a standing ovation and applause. And Richard spoke only very briefly. He said, my family and I are extremely grateful to God for a safe solution to this ordeal. Richard did not answer questions about the incident, and he said he just wanted to close the door on this entire situation. He didn't want to talk about it anymore. Now, Tony's lawyer, John Ruckelshaus, he tells him, listen, I can't be your lawyer for this trial because Tony's going on trial. He will be turning state's witness because he was involved in this whole thing. So he's like, I can't be your lawyer, but I can get you a really good lawyer. I know this amazing lawyer named Owen Mullen. And of course, that did not last very long. Owen meets Tony. Tony wants Owen to do whatever he says. And Owen's like, no, I don't do what you say. You do what I do. And as you know, as you can hear, it is very difficult to get along with Tony. Owen was like, I'm bouncing then. I'm not going to be your lawyer. So Owen Mullen gets a hold of another lawyer named Niall Stanton, who ends up being Tony's lawyer. Now, Tony was facing life in prison. They have Tony speak to a psychologist who says that, of course, Tony had a difficult life. He came from a very poor family. He adored his mother, but his dad was a very mean man. He was physically abusive. And they learn that Tony couldn't even understand why he was in prison because he didn't understand why the people, the public, didn't agree with him. He was hurt by this Meridian mortgage and he wanted to make it right. So why is that so wrong? If somebody hurts you, then you should right the wrong, right? Now, the defense will say that Tony was insane at the time of the hostage takeover, and the prosecutor says, no, he wasn't. So the jury foreman talks to the documentary crew of Dead Man's Line, and he says that everyone on the jury got really annoyed with all of it, with the entire process, that it felt actually pointless to argue Tony's sanity. And this wasn't the first time Tony had issues with people, including his family. So this comes out during trial. They find out that Tony held his sister hostage for 2.5 days to settle a debt. Tony was demanding $55,000 from his own sister because he said he did work for her. She owed him $55K and she wasn't paying it. And he demanded the same things when he was taking his sister hostage. He demanded that he doesn't go to jail, that his family doesn't put him in an insane asylum. They don't make him see a psychiatrist. Now, the jury hears all of this, and they also hear Tony get on the stand. And they mention that even when Tony tried to explain why he was so upset with Meridian Mortgage, it always circled back to the same thing. Tony couldn't pay his mortgage, and they were taking the land back. That's it. He failed to keep his side of the payment agreement, and the jury saw this. They also see, hey, this isn't the first time this guy has taken someone hostage. So Tony talks to the jury about a promise that he made to his mother. He's trying to gain sympathy from the jury. He's telling them, listen, when my mother died, I dropped my class ring into the coffin and I promised her that I was going to take care of my entire family. And that's what was going to happen if I had this land and I created this shopping mall and this restaurant. I was going to be able to take care of my family because I would be generating so much money every year. So he's trying to sway the jury by just, bringing on the waterworks and all this poor guy, but they're always seeing the same thing. He just didn't pay his agreement. And the jury is completely split. They go out to the judge and they say, listen, we can't come to a decision. And the judge is like, oh, hell no, get back in there and come to a decision. And they were just torn apart. They could not come to a unanimous decision. All 12 jurors had doubts, but they didn't understand if those doubts were actually reasonable doubts. So not one juror was happy with the verdict that they came up with because the jury went right back out there and told the judge, we find Tony Kiritsis not guilty by reason of insanity. Tony is going to be free, except that Tony needs to be in control, and Tony refused to submit to a psychological evaluation in November of 1977, so he was held in contempt of court and incarcerated in numerous mental health facilities. In January of 1988, after state officials determined that he no longer posed a danger to himself or others, Tony Kiritsis was released from Central State Hospital. Following his release, he lived a quiet and private life, remaining largely out of the public eye. He died of natural causes in 2005 at the age of 72. The hostage ordeal also had a lasting impact on Richard Hall. And in the years following the kidnapping, Richard endured a series of personal and professional setbacks. His father died in 1979. Meridian Mortgage eventually collapsed. He lost his business, and his marriage ended in divorce. Decades later, in February 2017, Richard Hall had a press conference to announce the publication of his memoir, in which he reflected on the traumatic events and their lasting effect on his life. Richard Hall's memoir is titled Kiritsis and Me, Enduring 63 Hours at Gunpoint. The Kiritsis case also influenced Indiana law, and in response to the public debate surrounding the verdict, the state's insanity defense statute was changed. So under the revised law, a defendant raising an insanity defense would be required to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that they were legally insane at the time of the offense. Now, as the movie by Gus Van Sant, Dead Man's Wire, depicts, Tony Kiritsis hadn't intended to take Richard Hall hostage that day. He was really after Richard's father, ML. There's an article I have linked from deadmansline.com. This is written by Mark Enochs, and it is about the fact that these filmmakers, they wanted to make this movie completely around the point of view of Richard Hall, but it was very difficult for them back in 2012 to get a hold of Richard Hall. In fact, they were told that he had died, and he did not. He was just a very private man, and they state that in 4 decades, only one person was able to get an interview with Richard Hall, and that was a high school reporter named Amy Jones. She got him on the phone, and only for a few minutes, she got him to answer some questions. Richard Hall's response to journalists, reporters, it was always very polite. He would always say the same thing to all of them. It's been my habit never to discuss it publicly. But when Richard Hall gave a short press conference at WIBC Studios on the 40th anniversary of the day he was taken, this was a press conference to announce his memoir that was going to be released. The date was February 8th, 2017, and after all of this time, Richard Hall was finally in the spotlight and he was finally able to talk and answer questions. Richard Hall stated that from the very start, he thought he was a dead man. From the first few minutes that he leveled that gun at me, I felt like God was with me and he was aware of what was going on. He had a plan for me. I wasn't exactly sure what that plan was, nor did I think it was a good plan. I just turned it all over to God. Richard was asked what he did inside of that apartment with Tony in the Crestwood apartment complex at night. Did he argue with him? Did he just play it cool? And Richard said, actually, I was doing a little of both. I had the position that I shouldn't let him run over me if I could help it. And so I kind of stood up to him from time to time and argued with him. But then it got to the point where he became a little unmanageable. He pistol whipped me with the revolver a couple times when I raised objection too much. I raised my fist at him a couple of times, and that really infuriated him. Other times, he was just an ordinary guy. We were kind of buddy-buddy. He told me some of his life story. He teared up sometimes talking about his mother. And during the whole 63 hours, it was just a little of this and a little of that. Richard went on to say, I've slept well. I haven't had any nightmares, but I've been kind of blessed by it not affecting me too much. Although from time to time, I will think about it and I will actually see his face. Now, Richard went on to have some counseling, some professional counseling. He also saw counsel through his faith. He did a counsel with an assistant pastor of his church, and he always had this one question that remained with him for 4 decades. Why would Kiritsis do such a thing if he was not mentally ill? How could he use an act of terror or an act of violence if he wasn't motivated in some fashion to do it? The question of a person's mental stability, the influences on him, I can't answer that. I think it's a question that might well be an answer to some of our hostilities and disagreements in the world today. Thank you so much for being here. I cannot wait to see you again next week. And until then, stay safe and stay paranoid. Talk hard. Just kidding. Residue is written, researched, created, hosted, produced, edited by me, Chrissy Champagne. See you guys soon.
Queen Carvania stood haloed by the morning sun. An army hung on her every word.
My champions, I have sold my chariot on Carvana. 'Twas a lovely SUV, an inexplicably queenly offer. They're even coming to the castle to collect it. Tonight, we feast! An offer you can feast on. Sell your car today on Carvana. Pickup fees may apply.